living sober, busy living sober, busy living sober with Andrea Morton, also known as Mom, and Think to Thrive Coaching. Hi, Andrea. How are you today?
Hi, Busy. I am so happy to be here. It's great to see you, and I liked your dance. That was fun.
Yeah, I like to do a little dance. It's like my thing. My kids are like, look at you. You're so crazy, Mom. I'm like, I know I am crazy. It is so fun that you said yes. And I want to say thank you because Andrea is she's not sober. She doesn't have any sobriety in her life or addiction in her family whatsoever. But she has an amazing message. And as a mom myself, and as an empty nester myself, and I'm like more further along the menopause path than you are. But I want to bring up today because we're putting this out tomorrow. We're actually going to put this out next week, but it's going to be after Halloween. But I just posted on my my personal account a picture of my kids when they were in elementary school.
Oh,
And my kids are now 27, almost 26, and almost 24.
yeah.
And boy, oh boy, did they ever tell you that you're going to feel like this?
No, they definitely do not. That is kind of why I do what I do, actually. Yeah.
Why do you do what you do?
Um,
How did this all come to fruition? Besides, I always believe that it's God or something bigger than us, the universe that guides us to something. But what took you on your journey to start Think to Thrive coaching?
oh my gosh. Well, I can take it back to when my kids were really as little as the photograph that you were posting today on Instagram. And we were living abroad at the time. My husband was traveling a lot for business, and I was parenting alone. Sometimes he'd be gone for up to 3 weeks at a time, and I missed him terribly. And the kids were a handful. They were younger. They were just so busy, so many things. To the day was just, you start it, you don't even know where the time has gone. It's over. You're exhausted, and you still have to do the dishes. So I'd be up really late at night doing household chores, once they were finally asleep, after like the umpteenth glass of water. And I was lonely. So I was listening to podcasts, and I was trying to figure myself out. I was trying to figure out who I was. I just felt so overwhelmed, exhausted, lost, all the things. And I found a podcast that actually really resonated with me. There was this woman who was talking about real things that I felt. And I thought I was the only one that felt those things. And I felt so alone. And then suddenly here's this amazing woman who is just talking real and raw about what her life is like, but she turns out to be a life coach. And so she's not just talking about the things I'm feeling, she's also giving strategies for how to make it better. And it was like a revelation for me, and I started listening, every night. And then I would find myself bringing her up at lunch when I go out with my girlfriends. If I had like a lunch date on the weekend, I would say, "Oh, I'm listening to this amazing thing." And slowly she became the voice in my head, like my friend. I started to feel like, oh, we know each other, even though we didn't know each other at all. But she would talk about how coaching, had changed things for her and her life. And then she would talk about some of the courses she taught. And one thing led to the other. And after about a year and a half of listening to her podcast, I decided, hey, why not? I'm going to take a class. And then one class turned into many classes. And I ultimately decided to get certified because in that time that I had just been listening and implementing her work in my own life, which is, I think, the most important part of coaching. It's not the coach, it's the actual woman on the other end of the call who is implementing, who is striving and stretching. And so in that time, I had seen such a dramatic shift in my own life, in my relationships. I had totally like let go of being in a victim mode to like, oh no, he's traveling again. Here I am alone with the kids. Woe is me. Right. I began to feel powerful and strong and brave for the first time in many, many years. Almost like I had lost myself to some degree when I became a mom. And then I was rediscovering this new person that I didn't recognize was always in me. And so it was amazing. So once that happened, I was like, wow, I need to give this to other women, other moms out there. I can't be the only mom out there at 11 o'clock at night crying because she feels so alone and so lost. Like there must be other people that are struggling the way that I was struggling and that I still struggle. Let's be honest. It's not like I became a life coach and like, ta-da, everything's perfect. It's magic. But now I have tools and strategies so that when it's not perfect, I know what to do. So that's basically in a nutshell. And then the empty nesting stuff, which I now specialize in, really was just very organic, busy, because my kids grew older. And, I'm just showing up online and in my practice as being like my vulnerable, authentic self. And so I'm going through real life right now. My body is changing. I'm in perimenopause. It sucks. Like, I'm being honest about it. And, my kids are growing. And now I have one that has left home and is in college, and I miss him terribly. And I'm just being real about that too. So as I have experienced the changes of motherhood, I have tried to bring that to the women who are drawn to what I do. And I've just tried to share sort of the message that, moms matter. I guess the last thing I would say is just I remember Googling in the middle of the night, who takes care of moms? Because moms take care of everyone else, always. But no one was taking care of me. And so, in that moment of like, let me just type it out to the universe. Who takes care of me? I decided I wanted to be the answer for that. I want to be the person when people say, who takes care of moms? I want them to think, Andrea Morton, she takes care of moms.
Yeah. I love that. I love that because I remember when my kids were little, and I don't know if I bet I am sure you can relate to this when they're really small. Because as I mentioned, I had 196, 197, 199. So it was like having triplets, right? And you just wishing for them to be big.
Right. Yes.
I mean, we wish and wish and wish, and then one day it happens.
I know. And then we are like, why did I wish for that?
It's so true. Why did we wish for that? And now we want to bring it back, and we want to be able to savor every minute. And every person that I work with that's younger, right, and has these little kids, I always give them these nuggets. I'm always like, wait a minute, do not ever wish. I think one of the biggest tools, and I wonder if you agree with this as well, instead of saying, I have to do this,
I get to.
get to.
Yep. I do agree. That
How
is
does
a
that
very
change
powerful.
everything so much? What is that? Just the verbiage, something so simple, but we just don't even think of it, do we?
I think that you are so right. I have a number of very close friends that have unfortunately recently received cancer diagnoses. I mean, like, I can't even tell you, it's like there's this epidemic of cancer that's happening in my life right now, and it's heartbreaking. And that have to versus get to is something that happens in a split second when you get a diagnosis like that, of like, oh, I have to drive the kids to school, becomes I get to drive my kids to school again today. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do that. Right. It's this huge mindset shift that happens in a second. Yeah. I
I
get to is powerful.
I did see that, and I'm so sorry. I did see that you mentioned that about your girlfriends, and I mean, we could get into the health and wellness aspect of it, but I do believe that the stress that we put on ourselves as moms, as having to be like professional jugglers, and it isn't balls we're juggling, okay?
Yep.
It's human lives,
Yep.
it's food, it's what we're putting in our mouths is we're running out the door to get from this thing to that thing, and we think it's easier. Oh, here's some. I mean, I was just at a grocery store 2 seconds before this, and there's the big thing for Lay's potato chips, and then there's a big, which I love potato chips. I'm not going to say anything bad about potato chips, but they're not the healthiest things. Oreo cookies, what are in those? And but what options do we have?
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you're on the go, right? As a busy mother that is just all over the place and you just need something to fuel you, right? So people tend to grab for whatever is easiest, fastest, nearest. But yeah, no, I am with you 1,000,000%. And it's tragic. So yeah, but I tell you that empty nesting is also a gift. That's something that a lot of the clients that come to me don't necessarily see in the beginning, right? Because they're like, oh, this is terrible. Like, my life feels like it's over. What did it all mean? What was the purpose of it? But it's actually an incredible privilege to reach the age where you can actually be an empty nester, right? Because so many younger parents don't have that blessing and would have done anything to have it. So Yeah. It's all about the mindset. It really, at the end of the day, life coaching is about that. It's about showing people what they're creating through their mindset and do they like it?
I have a question for you. Do you think that, at least for me, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of my story, and then I'm going to get, and then the question's going to come from that. But when my last one left, and I was divorced, so I was a single mom forever. I did not have the fairy tale I had expected, and my youngest son left, went off to college, and it has taken me 5 years to get okay with this. I mean, and different things happen. Of course, COVID happened. My mother died. I mean, just I couldn't travel and do the things I needed to do, all that stuff. Shots, not shots. It was just craziness. And I feel like it was trauma. Do you think we could categorize it as trauma because of, I mean, I know when I was younger, I thought trauma meant you had to have been in Vietnam, but I don't think that's the case today.
You mean empty nesting? Like, could you
Yeah.
qualify it as a traumatic
Yeah.
experience? So I really believe that trauma is something that is specific to the individual because two individuals can go through the same experience and have a really different experience of doing it, right? Like they can have a different mindset, they can have very different emotions. So you have one friend that's been in a car accident and they were like, wow, I just saw my life flash before my eyes and I was just so incredibly grateful to be here. And another friend goes through the same car accident and is like, oh my gosh, I can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm so depressed. So I do think that trauma can be anything for anybody, if it feels a certain way to them inside their body, inside of their brain. Yes.
And why do people get frightened to label things as something so big as trauma, even though it is trauma? I mean, feeling it in your heart and after doing the same thing for 18 years with 3 kids, and then having the entire thing of your life change is a
Mhm.
big deal, right? It's kind of, and I don't want to say it's like death because they're obviously still alive, but your entire who you are it's like who you are as a person changes completely. And when
Mhm.
you were talking about the moms, do you ever notice, because we watch football all the time in this house, right? That's just one of the things our family does. And when the guy wins the Super Bowl and he goes up and he gets the ring, rarely does he ever say thank you to mom. He thanks his wife, right? He's like, I'm going to thank my wife. When kids get married, right? When girls get married, they walk down with their dad, not the mom who was there the entire time, right? It's the dad. I'm going to walk you down the aisle. And the mom's the one that's sitting back there going, and we do. I mean, let's just face it. If there wasn't a mom, I don't know if we would even have families. I mean, I'm serious.
I think that, so, I mean, if I'm understanding the question you're asking, I feel like it's this sea change that nobody prepares you for. And they give us sort of a trajectory. When we're little, there's sort of a roadmap that is laid in front of us as children. Like, okay, in an ideal scenario, here's how it's going to look. Ideally, you are going to go ahead and get yourself into school and maybe even college, which would be like fantastic. And then get a job so you can support yourself because that's very important. And then if you can, get yourself a place to live that's like yours if you're able to. And then really the next step, if you're all ready for it, is to get a serious relationship where ideally you would get married, in the traditional view, and then you would have children. And then once you're a mom, then your children can be the focus of your life and it will be amazing. You'll be the best mom ever, right? That's that whole trajectory. But that's where the story ends. Nobody ever says, and then, 20 some odd years later, when your children leave the nest, here's what you should do next. It's almost like we have to write the script right now for what that looks like. We are living longer than ever. Despite all the cancer diagnosis, people are healthier than ever, and we have a long trajectory in front of us. Maybe you're like 55 years old and you're going to live another 40 years. No one ever says, and here's how to live the next 40. It's a lot.
So what you're doing is so important. And that's what I love about it. And what you're putting out there on Instagram, as much as socially media has like transformed everybody, and there's a lot of negative ways. We both probably can agree on that.
Yes.
but the positives and your messages. And what are you getting from your messages that you're putting out there? Because you are so authentic. You are so real. You are so appealing. I have to tell you that. I mean, I
That's
just
so nice.
love it. I love it.
What am I getting from it? Oh my gosh. It's more like am I hoping to give from it? That's
Okay.
really where I'm coming from every day. I feel like I desperately needed to see an account like the one that I have created when I was younger, especially before I discovered coaching. I felt so alone. I felt so overwhelmed. There were so many big emotions I did not know how to navigate. And there's shame that comes when you feel like you're the only one who's failing at something, or you're the only one that's struggling with something. There's like a lot of shame. People buffer from shame. I think some of the work that you do involves like helping, supporting people who have developed a practice of buffering from like really painful emotions that they don't know how to grapple with, they don't know how to experience. I am trying to put out there for the world an authentic experience of what it's like to be a woman in midlife. And I'm trying to be really honest about it. Like nothing I put out there is fake. It's all from my real life experience. But it's kind of important to me that people be able to watch the full reel, because what I'm creating each time is a mindset shift. I do notice, because I get, like insights on the things that I put out there. Instagram gives you like kind of analytics. And I noticed that a lot of people might only watch like, I don't know, say the first 20 seconds of what I'm putting out there. And each of my reels is 90 seconds. So they never get to the mindset shift. And I'm like, no, come back. Because if only you could watch the whole thing, you would see that actually, like, it's possible to shift your mindset and create something that felt really terrible into something that actually feels much more empowering. And so yeah, but I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did.
No, you did. You totally did. And I love that. And I think that's really interesting, the focus that we have. It's like as I don't know if it's internationally this, because I only have recognized it in America, but in the United States, is that our focus is so small. It's so short. It's so instant gratification. I mean, if you think about it, when we were growing up, people were just starting. I mean, I'm older than you. So I'm 55. I am 55. You mentioned 55, and I'm like, I'm 55. But and I'll get on when I was growing up, like we had to get dressed up to go on a plane. Everybody had to be in their
Mhm.
best Sunday finest. Everybody was like very polite. It was like, this was an experience, right? And it was a big deal that you were going from the East Coast to where you are in the West Coast in 5 hours. Okay.
Right.
And some people are like, "Wait, and we are talking right now on cameras through something in the universe, who knows what it is, satellites. And we have this like, wow, we're talking to each other on camera. It's in real time. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
And then you say, okay, I want somebody to listen to my message that's 90 seconds long. I mean, 90 seconds. Okay, that's crazy. Are you in agreement?
I think it comes back to that buffering thing that we were talking about before that I was mentioning, because I think that a lot of times people go on social media to buffer from whatever pain of their day that they're experiencing, right? Like maybe their boss just yelled at them and they're feeling really stressed, and they just are like, you get that surge of dopamine as you scroll through and you get hit after hit, right? You're looking through things that'll make you laugh. Right. You're making for things that are going to make you feel better. And so I think that, like, someone that scrolls to my account might be like, oh, this is a bummer, right? Because they're only seeing the first part. That's not going to make their day feel better unless they read the whole thing, unless they actually watch the whole thing. But really, I think the amazing thing about social media is that I have women from all over the world, countries that I never even imagined traveling to, that are contacting me every day and letting me know how much the messages that I'm putting out there resonate, and that they didn't realize that a Western mother, for example, halfway across the world feels exactly the same in her heart that they do, and that mothers everywhere are really very much the same. And I feel so good about that message right now. Like, I feel so good that I am able to make a deep connection, like a friendship, with women all over the world who are struggling just like I am, and who are working on improving themselves just like I try. So it's pretty cool. I love that about social media.
I love that too. And I want to ask you, how is your family your husband, and your kids about you being on social media? Because I know mine are always like, put down the phone, stop being on the phone. Oh my God, you're so annoying. Do yours do that?
So my 3 kids all follow me, and they are definitely my biggest supporters, and I am incredibly careful to not feature them on anything that I do. So if you follow my account, you will
Yes.
see that it is only ever me. And I have people saying like, "How can you be so self-centered that all of these reels are all about you?" But the truth is that that's by design. I honor and value my kids' privacy. I respect the fact that they deserve to have their own private lives and not have them splashed out over social media. Some of my kids' friends do follow me. I mean, it's their own decision to do so, but because of that, it makes my kids even more sensitive to what I put out there. So I really do think very carefully about what I post, and it's always authentic, but usually it's from the perspective of what it's like to be the mom in the situation without having to like, spread all of my kids' tea all over the internet, right? It's just like, it's not about them. And I think that's a really important thing. There are so many parenting coaches out there. I mean, there's literally amazing parenting coaches that specialize in parenting. I have lots of friends that are fantastic parenting coaches. I'm not a parenting coach. I am specifically for moms. I am a resource for mothers who feel overwhelmed or stuck or stressed or who are desperate to create something new for themselves or who are trying to figure themselves out. Like, I am not really about your kids. I'm about you. And I think that's cool. There needs to be more people that are just for mamas
Okay,
or
can I
dads.
just tell you that it is like I'm sitting here in awe of you because I think it's amazing because you just mentioned a bunch of things that moms can strive to be, which is authentic, which is respecting their kids and saying, okay, I get it. And if somebody says to you, you know what, I can't believe you don't put your kids on, you're a narcissist, whatever they called you, it's that's up to them. You do you, boo boo. As Henry likes to say, that's my baby. He always says, you do you, boo boo. I do throw my kids in sometimes because I just love that. I love Henry's sayings because he's just so cute. Um, but I love that you give people the ability to be authentic and you are real. And that is like, that's what we want to share to everybody. Like this life is not easy, is it?
No, no.
No. And the shame of like going through the menopause and feeling these
Mm.
feelings like we never thought like, why am I getting so hot right now? All of a sudden, what is this? It's not even hot out. What that
Mhm.
was all new. I'm not even going to get into the bedroom stuff because that's a whole nother story, sister. But it all of a sudden it happens, and you're like, what is nobody told me? And
Yeah.
I feel like were our moms shamed into not telling us? What do you think that was?
Well, to be honest, I did ask my mom about it, and I was like, "Why did you not mention how difficult this is? Because it's been really tough for me." Bless her heart, she was like, "Oh, I don't really remember it being that difficult for me." And I was like, "Thanks a lot, mom." So maybe it's not difficult for everybody, but for me personally, it has been a real struggle. And so I'm just trying to be real about that with, with the people that connect with me. Insomnia recently. I was just mentioning to you before our conversation today that I didn't sleep last night for 4 hours. So listeners, I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. But it's one of those things that's started happening now that I'm going through perimenopause. It's like I go to sleep, but then I wake up, ding, and oh, I can't sleep. So it gave me a great opportunity for some mindset management last night at 2 in the morning when I was like, oh no, I'm not sleeping again.
Well, you know what? I find that I have talked to a lot of people that are in our mom. God rest my mother's soul, but I did ask my mom, I'm like, was this horrible for you? And she's like, oh, it's no big deal. Now, every person who's in that night, born in the 40s and the 30s, they are all like, oh, it was no big deal. Was it because no one what is it? Do you think they weren't as sensitive to it? I wonder what it was because now it's a real conversation I have with my friends all the time.
I really wonder. That's a really intriguing question that I don't have a great answer to, but honestly, I mean, I will say expectations of my mom, who was born in 1938, very different than expectations of me, born in 1975. Like, my mom was 37 when she had me. I was the youngest of all of her kids. Really different. Like, she never dreamed of growing up to have the kind of career that I aspired to, or like for her, like there just weren't that many options. And so she just did the very best she could with what she had, and she was happy with it, right? But I think she pointed out to me at some point that like none of the moms that, were her age mothering were like going off and doing all these crazy things. So she was surrounded by a circle of other women that were very much in the same role, and they supported each other, and it just wasn't as stressful. I think that the crazy thing that has happened, I talk about this a lot in my coaching work, is that I come from, and maybe I can include you in this, you tell me, one of the first generations of women that was told we can do anything. We can be it all. We can be super women. We can have the career. We can have the beautiful family. We can have the house. We can have all the things, and we can do it all well at the same time. And the truth is that that's not true. That like physically it's not impossible for a woman to work 80 hours a week and do a fabulous job and rise to the top of her company at the same time that she's raising like 4 squirmy little kids, like, and trying to keep a marriage going. Like, it's just not physically possible. And I think that a lot of women in my generation feel like shame and sorrow over the fact that they feel like they've failed somehow, that they were promised that they could do it all, but like actually it's not true. And so they feel like, wow, maybe I'm the only one that's not doing it all. Like, look at all these other people on Facebook. They all seem like they got it all together. Somehow they figured out how to do it all, but I'm not doing it all. And then they just feel a lot of sorrow. And I coach a lot of women that just are like, what happened to me? Why can't I do all of those things the way that I was taught I could? So I think I might have gotten off topic there, Busy,
No,
but
I love
I'm
that. No,
passionate.
because it's no, and it's completely, it's so true. And I was right on the cusp because I was born in 1968, right? So I
Okay.
was right on the cusp of where the confusion began. It's like, wait a minute, am I supposed to stay home and be with my kids? Or, and it's very interesting because my girlfriends that are some are that are also divorced now. And it's like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, it's brought up a ton of things. Dating when you're in your 50s, like what is that like? Where when my mom, like hardly anybody really got divorced back then, they
Right.
just stuck with it. They thought it was this and that. And then this group that's like your age group that's just a little bit younger than I am, they all were like, oh, we're getting jobs. We're going to go be Mary Tyler Moore. I'm doing this.
Exactly.
Right.
100%.
And now all these moms, and I'm going to bring in, the drinking and the pills, which I know you don't, I don't know. I know personally it hasn't affected you, but when you talk to clients and you get things from other people, do you hear about drinking and pills at all?
I do, but I will clarify. So when I have a client that is currently going through something like that, like not from the past, but like it's currently happening like right now, it's one of the things that I will refer out for therapy, because there's like coaching and there's therapy, and they're beautifully integrated together, but they are not the same thing. So if you've had an experience in the past that you've worked through and now you've got goals you want to accomplish and you want to work with a coach, I'm 100% your girl. Or if you're currently working with a therapist who's supporting you as you are working through perhaps like an addiction to drinking pills, whatever, then I will 100% also concurrently coach you. But I'm not a substitute for that. I do hear a lot of women struggling with drinking too much. It's not a rare thing, I would say, at all. And I do think that there is a connection to this feeling of loss and failure that women can feel as they age. And I wanted to mention one more thing in context to what we were just discussing, which is this book by Helen Gurley Brown that came out in, I think it was 1982, and it's sort of like, I think the exact title was You Can Have It All, but it was about like love and work and sex and money and all the things, like you can do it all, girl. And I think that that book was given to a lot of our moms as they were raising us, at least, women of my age. So I would have been 7 years old when my mom read that book. And it was like a revolution for women. Like, here we are going to the workplace with our shoulder pads and, we're ready to conquer it. And so we were raised with like, oh, it is possible now. You can do it. But what I've come to and what I work on with my clients is very much, even though you might have the potential to be amazing at everything, you can't do it all at the same time. Right? You're only one woman. You're only in one body that needs sleep and needs peace. Like, maybe you can do it at different times in your life, but you can't do it all in the same minute. And that's something that a lot of people struggle to grapple with. But bringing it back to what you were just asking about with, the pills, with addiction and so forth, a lot of times people turn to that because they are buffering from stress, right? They're buffering from loneliness, from loss, from heartbreak, You get your kids leaving and no one's home anymore, and it's just you. Maybe you are a single parent because perhaps you went through a divorce in the past. And then you're like, wow, what do I do with all this time? Here I am, one more night, me in front of the TV again. And so drinking becomes a way, I think, that people kind of buffer against that really deep sorrow. It is a loss when your kids leave.
Oh, it is. And that's the coaching that I do is with the recovery coaching. That's, my specialty is helping people that have drug and alcohol issues. I've been doing it for over, almost 2 decades.
I'm going to refer to you.
You
I'm going
get
to
to
send my
refer to
clients
me.
to
Send
you.
some people to me. I'd love it.
I'd
I'd
love
love it.
to.
I'd love it. I'd love it. But it's so interesting what you were just talking about because it made me think of a fictional character because I'm not going to use somebody that's real because we wouldn't
Sure.
want to throw anybody under the bus.
Sure. Of
I
course.
don't know if you watch the morning show, which
I
is
have.
okay on Apple Plus, I guess is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Jennifer Aniston's character because she's heterosexual. I know that Reese Witherspoon is, a lesbian on the show, which is fabulous. But I love when you watch Jennifer Aniston and she's this powerhouse, right? She's on television, but she's lost the main things in her life.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the power job. She's got the money. But when it comes to like the real stuff, like that matters at the end of the day, that's going to be hugging you on that deathbed, you hope, which
Right.
is your partner, your kids.
Yeah.
And I don't want so many people to feel like that anymore. And I want to hug you through it because I just love what you're doing for people because for me, it was literally, I got divorced. I raised 3 kids by myself pretty much. I worked, but it wasn't my life because I had to be, it was my choice that I didn't want to miss a lacrosse game. I didn't want to miss a squash match. I didn't want to miss the crew, my daughter going by in a boat as fast as she did. And she was like, well, you don't even have to be here, Mom. And I'm like, oh, yes, I do. And I'm going to be as loud as I can be. But you're giving people the ability to say, it's okay to it's okay to be sad about it. But here are some tools that are going to work for you.
Yeah. 100%. And to normalize it, right? Because I think that many, many, many women around the world feel like somehow they're the only one that's going through this really hard time and they don't feel comfortable talking even to their friends or their family members about it. And then they, randomly scroll by my account on Instagram and they say things to me. I get messages almost every day like, I can't believe there's someone else in the world that feels exactly the way I do, right? When it comes to the harder emotions. So, but I love what you were saying that you showed up for all those things, and I think that that is so beautiful. And I think that there are a lot of women out there with regret because they look back and there's a lot of things they wish that they had showed up for. And that if they had recognized how important it was, they would have showed up for it. But they were so busy trying to like just make ends meet or just to get through to the next level that they didn't know how important it was. And now it's over. And now it's really sad. It's
Oh my
hard.
gosh, you could see I'm about to cry. I mean, I'm like, I spent my time on more wrestling at wrestling matches where I had no idea what they were doing. Oh my gosh, it gets you so emotional. And I think it's one thing is that I find really interesting these days is women don't always support each other, do they?
Oh gosh. I know exactly what you mean. I remember there was some sort of a million man march on Washington. It happened a long time ago, and people scoffing like, "Well, that would never happen with women because women support their men, they support their families, they don't support each other." So I know what you're talking about, but I find that it's really about getting below the surface. I think if women could show up with their hearts in their hands, they would support each other. I think it's more like survival. And a lot of women are just doing whatever the heck they can to get through the day because it is so hard sometimes to be a woman in this world, to be a mom in this world. And they feel like they have to show up in a certain way just to survive. And so it's not a vulnerable way. Whereas when I think we do show up super vulnerably, we can actually connect on that deep level because at core, we are very much the same. No matter how old you are, no matter where you live in the world, everyone wants love. Everyone wants connection. Everyone wants to not feel alone at the end of the day. Like, I do think that women have the capacity to be each other's greatest cheerleaders if we could speak on that profound level.
I love that. I love that because it drives me crazy. And I think with the social media, I'm just going to bring it back one last time, but it's when you like, when I have a friend and I remember she reached out to me, it's a long, long time ago, and she was on Facebook and the class moms were going out and she didn't get invited. It was like the cool moms from class, right? Because there's the cool moms that go out and do these things, and she hadn't been included. And then they had all these pictures up. They post all these pictures, and people post these pictures thinking that no one, I mean, I guess that nobody's going to watch them, literally knowing. And here on 95, it's called the highway here is 95. I know you guys have, it's the one, right? The one in
We have a
California.
lot of freeways in California.
But one of the major highways, but it's like a billboard. Nobody thinks about like, oh, I'm going to go put this picture up from the school class mom thing, and you didn't include everybody, and the other moms are sitting at home looking at these pictures going, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whether people do things like that on purpose or not, it's still heartbreaking to be on the receiving end of something like that. And I definitely have some close friends that are really grappling right now with, their kids, for example, maybe being bullied, and then like the mom of the child that's doing the bullying, not really being very like motherly, not very, supportive of like kindness and compassion. So, I mean, it takes all kinds, I guess, to make up a world. But I think that when we can show up as the best of ourself, right, then that's at least the beginning of trying to like make a connection even with somebody that maybe isn't as thoughtful. So yeah.
And my last question I want to get into, and it's kind of crazy I want to get into it, but I'm going to get into it anyway
All right,
because
let's
you
do
deal
it.
with the moms, and moms today we're dealing with the world we've never dealt with, right? We've never had tragedies the way we are having it. We've never had wars like this. I mean, obviously, when our grandparents went through World War II, it was probably like this.
Yeah.
But the hatred right now and the terrible things that are going on, and the callousness and the lack of respect for life is
Hmm.
so big right now.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of us to a dark place when we think about it, right? I was at I'm just, for those that are out there, I'm taking a class in the Kabbalah because it's ancient Judaism and it's mysticism, and I need to find light somewhere. So I just keep going to my Kabbalah class. And there was a woman there, and she's just like, I keep staying dark. Why do I keep staying dark? And my kids are around, and I don't want to turn on the TV. And when I turn on the TV and you see this just horrific things that are going on, what do you say to some moms out there?
That are feeling darkness, that are feeling fear. Um, well, I mean, to be 100% honest, like I'm grappling with it too, like everybody else right now. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I see what's happening in the world and my heart bleeds for mothers everywhere, right? Like I'm not somehow immune from feeling that because I'm a coach. You're a coach too. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
my whole work and life is about compassion and humanity. And so like there is not a single mother on the planet for whom my heart does not bleed. If she loses her child, there is nothing that I can imagine that would be worse for me.
me
Nothing.
either. No.
And it doesn't even matter how old your kid is. I don't care if you're 80 years old and your kid is 40. It's still your baby, right? So there's no such thing as a mom out there that like deserves to lose her child. It is so hard to raise a child to adulthood. Like, oh my gosh, I have so much white hair and wrinkles, and like, I mean, I have like
I don't
pieces.
see any. She
Oh,
looks
there's tons.
beautiful. Everybody who's
Oh,
listening on.
thank
She
you,
has
thank you.
none. Oh my
No,
gosh.
there's plenty, I'll tell you. And you're gonna see more and more of it because I'm probably not gonna diet. So it's just there is not a mother out there in the world who has not sacrificed infinitely for her child, who does not love her child more than life itself, who would not give up her life for her child. So to see mothers out there suffering so greatly, it breaks my heart. And I have to keep going because it doesn't help that mom for me to sit in the darkness and cry and not have anything to do but just feel mourning and loss. I have to find within myself the strength to be able to keep trying to bring light and keep trying to bring connection to women all over the world, because I believe that's how we make it through. I can't personally make a huge political change right now that would protect all of the women and children that, believe me, if I could, I would protect. If I could be a superhero at this moment and be like, I don't know what we would call me, some amazing mom name, but I would be out there like rescuing every woman and child on the planet, I would do it. But because I can't do that, what I can do is keep showing up with love. I can keep showing up as trying to be the best of myself and trying to make the mini connections with people. I can't be overseas saving somebody, but I can be especially kind to someone in the grocery store that I meet for the first time. I can be a good role model for my children, and I can teach them about openness and kindness and about like really trying to understand where another person is coming from, even if they're very different from you. Like, I think that this is sort of the thing that gets lost in these like huge, conflagrations, like what we're seeing right now is like that dehumanization, where we can no longer see that another person has humanity and that they matter. And what I can do is try to lean into my humanity and try to honor the humanity in all of the people I meet. So as a mom, I would say that like that gives you back the power. I can't control what's happening thousands of miles away, but I can control what I do with my day and how I bring love and peace into my day and how I try to rise up and protect the people in my immediate sphere. And that's got to be enough.
Oh, you're amazing. I am so glad you said yes to come on. This has been such a joy getting to know you and knowing that you're supporting all the mommies out there. And you've got it. You've got it going on, sister. I'm like so happy you said yes. And
Oh,
I love the tagline, you are not alone and you got this. And you're there to help the people get it one more day. It's amazing. Thanks for being you.
thank you so much. I'm really honored to have been here and I feel really grateful. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. And you guys, I'm going to have all the ways that you can reach out to Andrea in the description. Please go and look at that. It'll be all of her social media, all of her tags. You'll see a picture of her, everything else, and reach out. And don't do life by yourself. Please subscribe to my show. And if you go to my website, you can sign up for my mailing list. I'm starting a mailing list, everybody. So
Yay!
go check it out on either busylivingsober.com or elizabethchance.com. And until next time, keep getting busy, living sober. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.